Since the age of 10, I was overweight. I was one of 3 fat boys in my school. And in 2018, I stepped on the scales at the end of my first year of university and was 125 kilos. Since then, I've lost 50 kilos. I've obsessed over fat loss for 7 years. And even for 3 years, I was stuck in a cycle of binging and restricting. And it was so frustrating. It was the worst. And it's because I followed the advice of all the fitness influencers online. And after all this obsession and exploring and literally studying every single book that you can imagine, I've realized that the approach that needs to be taken for anyone that wants to transform their life and lose weight and become a different person, it's not about the perfect diet or the perfect exercise regime, but it's about rewiring your mind. And so in this video, I want to share the silent killer of all your progress. Let's get into it. Before I share the silent killer, we need to understand something really, really important. And it's the idea that weight loss is not just about losing some kilos on the scale. It's not about even your jeans fitting better. It's not about anything exterior to you. It's about transforming your existence. Now, you might be watching this and thinking to yourself, nah, I just want to lose weight because I'll look better and I'll be able to look like good on the beach or whatever. But when you go on a weight loss journey, and just trust me on this, because I lost 50 kilos, right? I was 125 kilos. You are transforming your existence. The way that you walk around in this world will be completely different after you transform your life. And you will transform your life if you follow what I say, so that's not an issue. But the way that you speak to people, the way that you order food at a restaurant, and I don't mean the actual food, although that might change, but I mean the way that you actually speak to the waiters, the amount that you get annoyed at stuff, your ability to attract relationships into your life, all of that's going to change if you transform your life. And I'll give you an example. So in my first year of university, I was overweight and I used to smoke weed, and all of my friends very early on were like sitting in our room and I was rolling a joint, and then there was a girl there and she said something and I was just like, I said the rudest thing to her. I basically just told her to F off because she said something that in my opinion wasn't that funny. And yeah, it was just quite mean. And I remember one of my best friends right now, at the time, he was just like, oh yeah, like you're not that much of a nice person. And at that point I was like, oh shit, like maybe I'm not. And I started to become nicer. But now I'm way nicer than I was. And the point that I'm trying to make here is that at the moment you might be feeling a certain way, a lack of confidence. And that was me at the time. I wasn't confident, which is why I was mean. And maybe a lack of worthiness, lack of value. You might feel like you're not reaching your potential, all of these different things. And you might think that weight loss is going to solve all those problems, but actually you will lose weight as a result of solving all those problems. I'll say that again because this is actually a really important point. Like, people think that weight loss will solve their problems, and it was me too. Like, I used to say to myself, oh yeah, like if I lose weight, I'm going to attract loads of girls, or if I lose weight, I'm going to become more confident, or if I lose weight, then I'm going to be a valued member of society. But no, you have to cultivate all of these qualities within you, and as a result of cultivating those qualities, you then begin to lose weight and you achieve the body of your dreams. And the reason why the process of losing weight is good is because yes, you lose the weight and you look better, but you have to exercise. And when you show up for yourself and you exercise and you eat healthy, that builds your confidence. And so internally, you have to change first, and then the weight loss comes afterwards. And so imagine you're baking a cake. The cake batter is your body, right? And you want to turn it into a cake, okay? And the quality of cake is basically the quality of body that you create. You can have all the perfect ingredients. And what I mean by perfect ingredients is the perfect diet program, the perfect training program, the perfect cardio routine, the perfect stretching routine. But if the oven doesn't work, you ain't gonna go get a cake, right? If you don't even understand your oven, you're gonna get a cake. My oven at home, the front of the oven doesn't work as well as the back of the oven. And so you have to turn around a cake if you wanna bake it. And so you have to have an understanding of the oven in order to bake a good cake. And that oven is your mind, okay? You need to be able to understand your mind and get your mind at the right temperature in a good place. And as a result of doing that, you will not only lose weight, but you will keep it off too. And this is the problem with the modern diet culture and the bodybuilding culture, because they'll say, okay, in order to lose weight, you need to be disciplined, you need to take action, you need to go on a cut, you need to do all these things. And it's like, all of that stuff is really, really easy if your mind is in a good place. But if your mind is in a bad place, then obviously you need discipline, because then things feel hard. And like, I'm speaking from experience, because as soon as I fixed my mind and I started loving my body and I started cultivating a sense of confidence from within and a sense of worthiness and value from within and self-love and self-acceptance, everything just feels effortless. Like at the moment, I'm eating 1 meal a day, no carbs, I'm doing 75 hard, and I'm only able to do all of these things because my mind is in the right place, and I've actually gotten rid of the silent killer, which I'm going to share in a minute, of all my progress. And it also means that you can sustain doing these things longer, because you're not doing it from a place of insecurity. You're not doing it from a place of lack, but you're doing it from a place of gratitude, okay? And it means that if you have an off week, then it doesn't matter, because you're already in a good place internally. And so the weight loss, you realize that the weight loss isn't actually doing anything for you, but you're just on this journey because it feels good. And I think that's a way better approach to go about it. And I think it's the reason why 95% of dieters regain the weight that they lose, because they're doing it for the wrong reasons and their mind isn't in the right place. And so if you want to fix your mind, if you want to rewire your brain, if you want to deepen your consciousness in order to make weight loss easy, effortless, and become a new person and feel completely transformed in the next 90 days, because I have the tools, the strategies, the systems to do so, because I've gone through it myself, then just click the link in the description, book a call with me, and we can have a conversation. And yeah, I can help you out a little bit. Even if you don't want to sign up, we can still just have a chat. I'd love to get to know you a little bit more. So yeah, click that link, we'll have a chat. But for now, let me share with you the silent killer. So there is something that we all experience in our lives that makes us feel a certain way in our day-to-day life. And if we don't get a hold of it, we won't lose weight and we won't really achieve anything in our life. And that is stress. And people talk about stress and they say, oh yeah, I'm feeling a bit stressed, or they say, I'm feeling like I've got a lot on and I'm feeling overwhelmed, but they don't really understand what stress is. And I think with an understanding of what stress is, we can actually not feel stress. And I can tell you with my hand on my heart, I'm gonna put my hand on my heart, I can tell you that I don't feel stressed anymore. I used to. And the reason why I don't feel stressed is because I have rewired my brain in order to not feel stressed. And I used to feel stressed all the time. I think as a child, it's probably one of the reasons why I ate, even though I didn't realize it at the time. And even growing up, after I started my fat loss journey, like I used to stress eat and stuff. And now, because I don't feel stressed, I don't eat. But from an evolutionary perspective, so going back to the hunter-gatherer times, right? The first thing that we need to understand is that stress is a survival mechanism. And there's a great quote by Alex Hormozy, and it says, just because you're stressed, it's not a bad thing, it just means you're alive, or something like that. And it's a great quote because there's nothing wrong with you if you're feeling stressed, right? But it's just that in the modern day, we don't really need to feel stressed. And it's not very helpful for us to feel stressed, apart from in short bursts, maybe when we're doing exercise or we're focusing on a specific thing. But from an evolutionary perspective, the reason why we feel stressed is because as hunter-gatherers, we would have been exposed to multiple threats throughout the day. So for example, a hunter-gatherer, some tribal man, he's walking around and he's, I don't know, trying to find his food for the evening for his tribe, and a lion just jumps out of the bush. Now in that moment, right, it is important for him to feel stressed, right? Because that feeling of stress is gonna prepare him, his mind and his body, in order to fight the lion or run away, which is why it's called fight or flight. And people don't realize that when people get stressed in the modern day because of some random email or something, and I'm going to be touching on why this is so stupid later on in this video. But like when people get stressed by an email or some random thing, maybe like they have to pay a refund for something or they get hit with a random bill, your body is responding and your mind as if there's a lion in the bush. And so next time you feel stressed, just ask yourself, is there a lion? Because if there's no lion, there's no reason to be stressed. So that's one way to like not feel stressed. But physiologically what happens, right, is you have a tank of resources in your body at any given amount of time. And these resources are allocated unconsciously, okay? And it's run by this, I'm gonna write this down actually, but it's run by this system called the autonomic, or it's a big word, I feel like a scientist, nervous, I can't reach over there, so I'm just gonna write it here, system, okay? And that's basically what controls this stressed response or the other rest and digest response. And what happens is when you get stressed, a bunch of chemical reactions happen. Cortisol and adrenaline is released into your bloodstream. And as a result of that release, your pupils dilate so you can see a little bit better. Your heart rate will go up, your respiratory rate will go up, your hunger will go down. And so all of these physiological things in your body are happening. And your mind, well, your mind will start to focus on what's going on around you because, again, if there's a lion coming at you, you can't be thinking about what's within. You have to think about the material world. You have to think about, you know, whether you can run away or you can climb a tree, or everything that's in your surroundings becomes your thought process, and you're just unconsciously predicting, if I do this, this is gonna happen. And you're trying to plot the best escape situation as if there's a lion coming towards you. Everything goes back to the lion, okay? And what happens is the rest of your body shuts down because this requires a lot of resources. Imagine you're in school, okay? The whole school is going through the lessons, everything's functioning normally, and this is the school is your body. Everything's functioning normally, everything's operating as usual, everyone's just like in their lessons, everyone's learning, everything's happening like as normal. And then the fire alarm goes off, right? Everything goes to a halt, everyone goes outside, and all resources are allocated towards putting out the fire. In the exact same way, your body is just allocating all resources towards putting out whatever's causing the stress. And what that means is that your body can't allocate resources towards the normal functioning of your body, right? Because if there's a fire going in the school, right, ain't nobody learning history. Ain't nobody learning Pythagoras theorem, right? And so what happens is your body has all these unconscious functions. So like breathing, digesting food, sending nutrients and recovering your muscles and your bones and your teeth and all these random things going on without you realizing. Because you're in a stressed response, you are not allocating resources to all of those things. And all of the resources are going towards fight or flight, okay? And so in the modern day, when we're getting stressed all the time by what's going on social media, maybe there's an email that we get sent from our boss. I remember when, just before I got fired in my first year, no, not my first job, I did get fired in my first job, but my last job, my most recent job, got fired, got an email. I think it was the week before, and it was, oh yeah, like, can we have a meeting on Tuesday morning, 9 a.m., please come into the office. And there was like no information about what the meeting was about. So I don't know, I think companies shouldn't do this, but that email, I remember receiving it and I was like, this doesn't sound good. And that created like this stressful feeling, like I felt anxious, okay? And so anything in the modern world can cause us to feel stressed, right? And so if we don't learn to manage our stress better, then, and we're getting all these random things causing us to feel stressed, and we can also create stress in our heads, right? We can have thoughts and we can think about our past and think about the future and think about what we have to wear for dinner on Thursday and all of these things. If they're all causing stress, then our bodies are not going to be able to function properly. And honestly, I've been really working on this myself recently. and I've like really calmed down, become a lot more peaceful, become a lot less stressed, and my gut health has improved. What does that mean, right? What does that mean? Because if being less stressed means that gut health improves, and I'm sure there's some scientific study on this, doesn't that mean that your body's functioning better? And that means that when you're in a stressful state, your body isn't functioning better. And so if we can just manage our stress better, then our bodies are going to be functioning better. And what happens then? Well, then we're going to basically be able to lose weight a lot easier. And so in the modern day, there's a bit of a plague, because we wake up and we check our emails, we check social media, we watch the news, and we are constantly thinking about our past, our future, and we have no control over our thoughts at the moment. And I'm going to explain later on in this video like how you can get some control, but like we don't have any control. And as a result of that, we're just constantly putting ourselves in fight or flight. The modern day is like just stress. I'm just going to write stress, but it's just like full of stress, okay? You wake up in the morning and you think about some random thing, and then all of a sudden you're thinking about some other random thing, and then you're having this like internal conversation in your head about the conversation that you're going to have with your boss that hasn't happened yet, that doesn't even exist yet, and that is causing you to feel stressed, okay? I remember my client the other day, he messaged me, and it was like quite a deep message, you know, he was just telling me some quite personal things, and I read that message and I felt it inside, because I care about my clients, right? I care about how they're feeling and their existence and how they're feeling on a day-to-day basis. And so that caused stress within me. And so a simple WhatsApp message can induce a sense of stress. And by the way, if you want me to work with you to feel less stressed, to work on your mind so that you can lose weight effortlessly, then hit the link in the description and book a call with me. But because of all these different stimuli causing stress, we're in this perpetual cycle of, I'm going to write this down because this is important. Stimulus, thought, emotion, and as a result of the emotion, stress. And the thing is, this cycle goes back, and then we keep going back into emotion, into stress. And so this cycle just keeps going round and round, because the more stressed you are, right, the more that you're going to think about the things going on around you. The more that you're going to start trying to predict things going on around you. The more that you're going to try and plot. Because remember, you're in a state where you're trying to escape a lion. And so you're constantly thinking about, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do this? This happened yesterday. I need to do this, right? It's basically kind of like you have a browser open, and every single thing that you're stressed about is like a tab on the browser. And if you're in a stressed state, and this is obviously a spectrum, but if you're in a bit of a stressed state, you're basically just like looking at each tab very, very quickly. And so you actually don't have any time to like properly assess the situation and like understand it and solve the problem that you're trying to solve, but you're just like flitting between them, trying to predict things. And this is proven because when you're in a stressed state, right, your brain goes into beta brainwave, okay? Brainwave. And I'm going to be talking about brainwaves, if not in this video, in another video. But brainwaves is basically the speed at which your brain is functioning, okay? And when you're in beta brainwaves, high beta brainwaves, you're high alert, you're stressed, and you're focusing on predicting things. You're focused on the surrounding environment because you're trying to run away from a fucking lion, okay? And in this state, because you're in high beta, your mind is running so quickly that you have no opportunity to change, right? You have no opportunity to change because you're constantly focused on what's going on at the moment. And if you're constantly focused on the surroundings, predicting, thinking about the past experience, thinking about what you need to wear at the dinner on Friday and how you're going to look and how other people are going to think that you're going to look, or you're thinking about the conversation that you're going to have with someone else on next week, or the email that you got and what you need to do for it. If you're constantly in this state, right, we have no opportunity to change our present way of thinking, the thought loops that we're having, and the emotions that we're feeling. And as a result of that, we just stay in this cycle. and we can't create a new reality for ourselves. And weight loss is just a change in your reality, right? What, like I said at the beginning, it's a transformation of your existence. And so if you're in a stress state, if you're in a negative emotion state, right? You don't have the opportunity, like literally physically, in order to change, because you're constantly thinking about random things that are going on, okay? And we just stay in this cycle. We're either thinking about a familiar past or thinking about the predictable future, because we are stuck in this cycle of the same thoughts, which trigger the same emotions, which trigger the same stress, which trigger the same thoughts, the same emotions. And as a result of this cycle, we have the exact same behaviors. And yes, we might be able to go on a diet for a bit, but we always go back to the same thoughts, the same emotions, the same stress. And so the reason why this is the silent killer is because people don't realize that this is actually stopping you from changing. All right, so now we understand this cycle, we can move on to the next point. By the way, let me know in the comments what you think of this video, because I'd love to know your feedback. If there's anything you want me to cover, don't worry, I got you. But anyway, so I don't know what point that was, maybe 8. Your brain is also like a computer program. And so the more that you have these similar thoughts, similar emotions, similar stressful responses, your body's like, hey, I don't want to have to rewrite this every single time. So like, imagine there's like a controller in your brain. It's like a software computer programmer guy. And in computer programs, you can write something called functions, right? And functions are basically bits of code that you can write and you can store away that you can use in your computer program later on, so you don't have to rewrite that piece of code. And so you can create this function, and with that function, you can just like dot it in throughout your computer code, and the program will just process that bit of code, that function, as if it was the full length code. But it's a lot more efficient because you don't have to rewrite like a full length bit of code, and your brain does the exact same thing. Once you start feeling the same thoughts, the same emotions, and the same stressful situations over and over again, right? Your body remembers it, because neurons that are wired together fire together, okay? And so your brain kind of creates this path between the neurons, and so it's a lot easier to create the same thoughts or have the same thoughts, which trigger the same emotions, which cause you to feel stressed. And this happens over and over again. And so it becomes really, really easy for you to feel stressed if you keep doing it over and over again. And the thing is, we get addicted to negative emotions and stress. Like, we don't even realize, but we literally enjoy, or I don't want to say the word enjoy, but we get addicted to feeling frustrated, because that emotional response, the brain likes it. The brain gets used to it, okay? And just like someone gets addicted to cocaine, or someone gets addicted to smoking weed, you can get addicted to emotions, and you can get addicted to feeling stressed and feeling that heightened sense of, you know, a lion attacking you. And what happens then is that we just keep having the same thoughts, the same emotions, triggering the same stressful situations. And like what I said about stress, right, is that when we're in a stressful state, our body doesn't function properly. And if our body's not functioning properly, guess what? We ain't gonna lose weight. Imagine you're in Masai Mara, okay? And you wanna get from one end of the park to the other end of the park. And there's like one path that everyone's gone down that has been well trodden. No one is gonna go on some other random path to get from one end to the other. Even though there's infinite possibilities to get from one end to the other, you're gonna go down the same path because it's been trodden on, right? And the more that you tread on it, the more likely you're gonna go down that path. The thing is, if we wanna lose weight, if we wanna feel more confident, if we wanna change, we have to go down a different path, which means changing our thoughts, changing our emotions. And as a result of that, then we change our behaviors. But it starts up here, okay? And even more so, right? Experiences with high negative emotional charge, I'm gonna put a negative charge, most easily remembered, okay? So if you think about 9/11, for example, in 9/11, everyone who, I was quite young to be fair, but like people often say that they remember exactly where they were during 9/11, okay? They remember exactly where they were, which is super interesting, right? Because what was so, like, obviously 9/11 was like a really big event and like there was a lot of stuff going on, but when people heard that story about 9/11, it created a high negative emotional charge, and so people now are like, I remember exactly where I was. It's the exact same reason where I remember in Turkey, my auntie, we were walking in the street, my auntie looked over to me and she was like, and there's like ice cream shops on the way down, it's a place called Dalaman, and it's like this long street with like loads of touristy shops and stuff. And like my auntie looked around to me and she was like, Neem, I think you're getting a bit big. And obviously, for some reason, that created a negative emotional charge at the time, because I was like, shit, like, why is she saying this to me? I'm just trying to live my life and eat my ice cream. But the point here is that like anything that we experience negatively, we're gonna create a high memory for it. And if we create a high memory for this negative experience, then it's more likely that later on in our life, we're gonna have thoughts that trigger that negative experience. And that's gonna put us back in that stress state, because negative emotions cause us to feel stressed, okay? And there was a study done in 1999 by this guy called Haman. And Haman, what he did was, he took a group of people, he split them in half, and he showed one of them negative photos, and he showed one of them positive photos, okay? Each group was shown different types of photos. Now, negative photos were like people dying, people hungry, people in poverty, people in disaster, like people were getting killed, like really, really negative photos. And then the positive group, what happens is he was showed like happy photos, right? You know what a happy photo is. And he did brain scans on all these people by this big scanner called the fMRI. And what happened, right, was that there was more amygdala activation, which is the part of your brain that is associated with long-term memory. There was more amygdala activation when participants were shown negative photos, okay? And so we are wired to remember negative experiences or experiences with a negative emotional charge. And so what happens is these neurons in our brain that are connected to negative emotions, right, are wired more often, because the negative emotional experience happens, and so that gets put into our memory. And then later in our life, we have thoughts about different things, and they trigger those same neurons. And like I said with the Masai Mara story, the more that a path gets driven on, the more it gets easily triggered, okay? And so this just becomes an endless cycle of us having thoughts, those thoughts triggering negative experiences or memories or other thoughts, those having negative emotions that causing stress and us being stuck, okay? And so if we want to change and we're constantly just thinking about like what's going on around us, the emails, the dinners, the stuff that we're gonna wear on holiday, how we're gonna look, the scale weight, like all these material things, then we have absolutely no chance of changing. Absolutely no chance, because we're in a constant state of negative emotion and stress. And it's easy to feel this way, that's the thing. It's not hard to do this, because like I said, we're wired to remember negative experiences more and more, okay? And so it is like imperative that we put up a stand. And there is one habit that I've been quite consistent with over the last few years that has allowed me to literally rewire my brain. And that's why I saw so much success on my weight loss journey, where I was literally able to change habits so quickly, is because I meditated. And I meditate every single day. Now I'm meditating for like an hour every single day at the moment, okay? And it's genuinely the best thing that I can be doing for my mental health. Not exercise, not writing in the gratitude journal, not like, I don't know, going for dinner with my friends, meditating. And I'm gonna explain how meditation works, because you might be thinking, oh, like I've tried meditation, but it doesn't really work. I just have too many thoughts. Well, that is the point. I was speaking to someone recently and she was just like, oh yeah, like I tried to sit down and meditate, but then my thoughts just like spiral. And I was like, that's the point. But let me explain. You're going to be, let's just say a simple meditation. Now there's different types of meditation, but you're focusing on your breath. So breath 1, breath 2, breath 3, breath 4, breath 5, breath 6, breath 7, breath 8. So you're going to keep doing these breaths in this box, and you're going to be focusing on it. At some point, right? At some point, you're going to have a thought, okay? And the focus is going to go away from the breath. And then you're going to have another thought, and then you're going to have another thought. And at that point, most people quit because they think, oh, like I can't meditate, I can't sit there. But as you do it more, you're going to start to catch yourself having these thoughts. And when you catch yourself, you bring yourself back to awareness, to consciousness, instead of unconsciousness. And you can do it more and more. And so instead of catching yourself here, you might catch yourself here, or you might catch yourself there and be aware of what the train of thoughts were. And every time you do that, it's a win. Every time you do that, it's a win, okay? Because you are now becoming conscious of the unconscious. And when you become conscious of the unconscious, right, it's a very, very powerful thing, because later on in the day, you might look in the mirror and you might say, I feel fat. In the past, this would have been unconscious, just like these train of thoughts here. But now, because you've trained your consciousness, you've trained your awareness, you now become aware of this thought pattern that you're having. And this I feel fat might go to other thoughts, some experience in the past, some negative emotion makes you feel stressed. But because you've got that awareness, you can either, one, stop that train of thought, okay? So you don't get to that negative emotion, and as a result of that, you don't feel stressed, and as a result of that, your body's functioning better. Or, and I think this is probably better, is that you can displace with gratitude. So instead of saying, I feel fat, you can then change that. And I've done this myself. You can say, I look amazing. And guess what you've done there? You've switched from an emotion of lack to an elevated emotion, okay? And when you're in an elevated emotional state, your brain waves are slower. You're less stressed. Your body's functioning better. You will lose more weight. But not only that, you go from a brainwave state from beta to alpha. Beta is really fast, like you're in this stress state, you're focusing on what's around you, you can't really actually change your thoughts. But when you're in alpha, you're in a creative state. And I've been working on this a lot recently, very, very, very much. Alpha is the kind of daydreaming state, and you might have experienced this maybe when you're driving, when you're walking, depending on how mindful you are, like you would have experienced this throughout your life. And in that state, you can create, and you can start to think about your new future, your new body, whatever you want in your life, you can start to think about it because you're in this creative brainwave state. It's your physiology. And so at that point, you're in a position to create whatever you want. And as a result of that, you achieve your desired body. But if you don't have your mind right, you can have the perfect diet, you can have the perfect workout plan, you can have anything, you ain't gonna lose weight. Look, if you like that video and you wanna work with me to fix your mind, to become the best version of yourself and transform your life in the next 90 days, then book a call with me, click a link in the description. Other than that, remember, you are the person that you wanna be. Peace.